Hi, welcome. Today I'm going to explain you why most spells fail as a witch, and I'm also going to explain you what are the main components of a successful spell. So let's start. Most spells fail for one main reason, and that's sloppiness. So when I first started, I had a success rate of about 30 to 40%, and as I started to study more, practice more, and learn more, and treat witchcraft, spellcasting, whatever you want to call it, as a system, then my success rate increased to around 80%. So you see, magic, witchcraft is not just like mystical chaos, it's not just putting a slice of lemon and a candle and wishing for the best. It's way more than most of people realize. Is a system that needs precision. It's like designing a system where you need to get all of the elements in place in order for that spell to have a high success rate. So spells work on the subconscious level, which means that everything that you do for a spell to have success is based on the idea that you're going to influence the subconscious mind of the target or of yourself. I do lots of spells for myself, so I normally do that in order to influence my own subconscious mind, and I can also see the direct results of that. So what that means is that everything that we do as a practitioner to cast a successful spell is based on working with the subconscious mind. So it's kind of like it tunes in with so many things. Like I had to learn astrology, psychology, and some shamanism as well in order for me to increase my success rate. And I think it's actually very advisable for anyone looking to cast spells and to start with witchcraft to learn those, because you're going to need them along the way. And also learning about plants and crystals. That's also very important for casting spells. So now let's start with the system. So what are the main components of a successful spell? First, I will check to see if the kind of spell that I'm thinking of doing is aligned for the goal that I have in mind. Because sometimes I might think, oh, maybe I want to do a money spell, but actually in order to draw money to me, I need to remove obstacles first. So then I will just do a tarot reading. So I'll use divination tools such as tarot in order to establish if that spell is right for that goal and for that person, in this case myself, at the time. If not, I will figure out which spell brings the most efficient results, and if that's like the overall timing is aligned. So once I know which spell is needed for the purpose and for the person, I'll move on to look at the calendar of the moon phase to see what moon phase we are in, what constellation the moon is at, and planetary hours, day of the week, because all of these things have have a high impact on the spell success. As those things are mathematically calculated, they're connected to astrology. This is why having some astrology knowledge is important for witchcraft and to be a successful witch or wizard, whatever you want to call it. So we need to match the constellation, the day of the week, the moon phase with the spell's intention. And I have an app that calculates the moon phase, tells me which constellation the moon is in. Another app that I look at for planetary hours. So this is the next stage. I will establish the right timing for the spell according to the moon, the constellation, and all of these aspects. And it's better to wait. Sometimes I waited like 2 or 3 months just to get the right timing for the kind of spell that I had to make. So it's better to wait for the right timing than to rush and make a spell at the wrong timing, because that's how the spell can backfire, or can collapse, or can have a lower success rate. So after I will establish the right timing for that particular spell based on all of these elements that I just described to you, I will move on and start to gather the components of the spell, which normally is different plants, herbs, flowers, sometimes animal derivates, depending on what kind of branch of witchcraft the person is following. And it can also be crystals, it can also be certain elixirs, certain oils, particular candle colors, so on. And for crystals, for example, if I'm going to use a particular crystal for a spell, I will need to make sure that the crystal is cleansed and charged before and programmed before the spell. And that can take from a few days up to a week or two in advance of the spell. When it comes to the plants, I need to procure the right plants. So I need to look and see which plants have the energy imprint that matches the spell. So, for example, if I do obstacle remover spell, I will look at plants that remove obstacles. And if I want to bring in more abundance, I'll look at plants that normally bring in more abundance and so on. So I'll have to procure those plants or those herbs or those flowers, whatever they are, and then enchant them one by one. Cleanse all the tools I'm going to use prior to the spell. So, for example, the plate, the magical tray, the plate that I'm going to use, and so on, the space, the room, and so on. So, yeah, so it's the divination, timing, then procuring the ingredients. And also, I think here the procuring the ingredients, I should add that when I use certain crystals, if I need to just put a tiny amount of that crystal in the spell, in the word, so I will need to break a bigger crystal in order to get like a small piece of the crystal. And for that, I will put on protective gear because lots of crystals become unstable or toxic once you break them. So that's why it's important to learn about crystals and about plants. There are also some plants that are poisonous. After that, I will cleanse myself and the space, like purify myself. It can be through different rituals, incense, whatever. The idea is to cleanse the space in yourself before casting a spell to have that kind of neutral energy. And also for the practitioner, so if I'm casting the spell, I need to get into a state of coherence and of focus and presence in order to be completely present, focused when I'm casting the spell. That's the best, what works the best for casting spells, but sometimes some practitioners also channel anger. So you can either cast the spell from a calm, neutral state or from anger. Anger works really well as fueling the spell, but I wouldn't recommend using anger for beginner practitioners because you do need to know how to harness that anger towards the spell. And if you don't, you can invite chaos in. So use anger with caution if you're a beginner witch or practitioner. Then, the next stage will be lighting the candle and casting the spell. Now, what does spell casting actually mean? It means basically having, like, using the power of your words to set an intention. And this is also super important. You cannot just wing it and say whatever crosses your mind while you light up the candle and just hope for the best. No, precision is highly important. So words matter a lot, and being very clear, very precise, very specific matters a lot for a successful spell. For example, if you want to do a protection spell and if you just say, may this person be protected and that's it, that's a very, very weak spell. That's something that maybe a beginner practitioner will do when they're just starting out. What will an advanced practitioner do? They will decide what kind of protection they want to put on the person they're casting the spell for. Is it like physical protection, protection against hazards and accidents? Is it energy interference? Is it protection from a particular person? So they will get very specific. For example, they'll say, may this person be protected against any hazards, any physical accidents, any incidents, or any energy seen or unseen or unknown, any curse, any hex, and so on. So you get the idea. So words are very important, and in the practitioner needs to be very specific and very careful with the wording, because that's how the spell can be attacked or can collapse if the wording is not properly formulated. It doesn't need to rhyme. It helps if it rhymes, but it doesn't need to rhyme. It's more important to have a very well taught, precise, specific, formulated spell than just having something that rhymes. So after I cast the spell, I will turn on the candle, say this carefully curated text, and then I will let the candle burn fully. Now, the way the candle burns, the flame, the formation that it makes, the cardinal points the flame goes towards, they all represent something, they all symbolize something. So that's why I will put a phone to film the whole burning process, and I'll put it on hyperlapse so I can watch the whole burning, like a few hours of the candle burning. I can watch it in just a few minutes and see what happened to the flame and to the candle, how it burned, because that will tell me about the success of the spell and what is actually happening, whether the spell was successful, and if there were any obstacles and anything else like that. For example, if the candle just goes off all of a sudden, and before that it has these kind of pops and cracks, that signifies energy interference and that there is an obstacle that's impeding the spell and that goal to actually manifest. So yeah, after that, I'll look at the video, I'll interpret the candle flame, and then I will end with doing another tarot session, maybe a few hours later or the day after, to check how that spell landed, to see what are the results, if anything else needs to be done. And the remains from the spells, like the plants, the herbs, and anything else that I use that I no longer need, is going to be, I'm going to thank them and I'm going to get them back to earth. So if there are plants, I'm going to thank them and put them in a park or someplace in the earth. If there's like candle wax, if it's not natural soy wax or like coconut wax, so if it's not natural wax, I'll just throw it in the bin if there's any leftover. But I will thank all of the elements and then release them. And after this, depending on what kind of spell I do, I might need to cleanse myself in the space again. So to purify myself in the space again, and the train and all the things that I use for the spell. And again, depends on the spell. If it's a glamour spell, no, don't cleanse the space, because otherwise the spell collapses if you do glamour and then you cleanse the spell. No, it's a no-go. So yeah, after this whole process is done, which can take the whole process can take a few days to a few hours, depends. What's important in depending on the spell is what the person who the spell is done for, what they're doing the next couple of days up to like a week. So let's say if someone placed an order with me for a money or abundance spell, I do the spell for them and I will tell them, okay, so be careful what you do in the next couple of days, up to a week. Try to be mindful of your spending, but at the same time, try to not indulge in any lack thoughts, to not take decisions from a place of lack, because the behavior after the spell for a few days up to a week needs to match the spell intention. Otherwise, the spell can collapse if the behavior and the actions don't match with the spell. Because in that fragile timing after the spell is when the spell starts to work on the subconscious level and to take root. So if the person does things that are against the spell in that timing, the spell can collapse. So yes, these are in short the components, the system of creating a good successful spell. And if you want to place an order, if you want to get a spell done with me, you have details in the description below. Have a great day.